Hello and welcome to today's Democrats of Greater Tucson meeting. My name is Larry Bodine and I will be your host today. Well, let me introduce our speaker today, and that would be Democrat Morgan Abraham. Morgan is a member of the Arizona House of Representatives representing the old Legislative District 10. Today, he is running for the state Senate in the new LD 18. And as a progressive small business owner who routinely fights against big business, he wants to use his knowledge of the tax code to find some way to permanently fund public education the way it was before 2008. And with his background in affordable housing, he will work to incentivize the development of new housing, making it more affordable for everyone. And with that, Morgan, the floor is yours.
Well, that was a wonderful introduction. I have to start by saying it's so exciting to be here because I was a board member of DGT, maybe 2016 and 2017. And it is so wonderful to see what you all are doing and continuing to do. And it seems like the membership is stronger than ever. So it's really a pleasure to be here. And it feels like this is my fourth DGT talk. Most of them have been for ballot initiatives prior to this, but now it's fun to be here for as a member of the House. So thank you so much. So I'm Morgan Abraham. I'm currently a member of the Arizona House of Representatives and running for the state Senate. And this is like a very brief background. I have an agenda because I'm in the military. So any good military officer always has an agenda on any PowerPoint. So all I want to talk about here is just who I am, why I chose to run for the appointment for House, why now is important, why I picked this year to do something. And then briefly about my work at the Arizona legislature and kind of what I do, what bills I run, what bills I fight back against, and kind of I want to leave a lot of time for questions as there always seems to be plenty of questions with DGT. So first of all, who I am, and it was a wonderful bio you read, Larry, but I'm Morgan Abraham. I'm an affordable housing builder. That's my profession. I'm an Army intelligence officer. So I've been in the Army for about 6 years now, serve as an intelligence officer. I'm in the reserve component right now, but I've been active duty a couple stints. And right now, the new job, I'm a state representative here at the Arizona House of Representatives, representing LD 10, so Midtown Tucson and a little bit of the east side. I spent my life making Southern Arizona a better place. As a small business owner, I've created thousands of units of affordable housing. That's what my business does. We create affordable housing in Southern Arizona. As an intelligence officer, I've served to protect and defend our country. And now in the Arizona legislature, I've introduced bills to get rid of tax loopholes to fund education, bills to create a public pre-K system, something I'm very passionate about, and I'm sure we'll talk about more, bills to retire coal and natural gas plants to fight back against climate change, and bills to address the affordable housing issue, something that's near and dear to me being an affordable housing supplier. In politics, before this job, I've spent most of my life pushing back directly against reckless Republicans. And that includes fighting against Jan Brewer over tuition when I was way younger, fighting against Doug Ducey over education funding 5 years ago. And so now I'm running for the state Senate to keep pushing for those progressive values. And because I really do believe we need a fighter at the legislature, someone that's going to push back against these terrible, terrible ideas being floated here. I have the values, the experience, and the energy to keep representing Pima County. And I hope to be back here next year to do so. So obviously I have a couple pictures here that just kind of tells the story of those three key components of my life. First of all, the affordable housing builder. That was a little high profile project I did, the Spanish Trail Motel. So my company typically buys existing buildings and converts them to affordable housing. That's what I do. And so that was a wonderful project we did. 210 homeless veterans we were able to house. I'm very proud of that project, and we made a huge difference in our community. In the middle is actually at the University of Arizona, where I attended as an undergrad and received my commission there. So I'm an Army intelligence officer. I'm currently in the reserve component, but I've done 2 stints on active duty, one of which we'll talk about, which is my why now for running. And of course, the last picture is me serving right now at the Arizona House of Representatives, which is what I'm doing today. I'll be on floor at 1 o'clock, continuing to fight for Southern Arizona. So now for the fun part, why I chose to run, why I'm continuing to run. And it's super simple. I mean, I want to live in an Arizona that upholds the values my parents taught me, an Arizona where our kids strive for a better life than we have. And I feel like that was the Arizona dream not too long ago. And in the last 10, 20 years, we've really lost our way. And that's what I'm pushing back against. So I want to briefly talk about my family because they truly made me who I am and gave me the values that I have today. So I have two pictures of my family there. The left is a little older, the right's a little newer. But my mom, who you can see, my mom, Ginger, she's an elementary school teacher, public school teacher. And she taught me firsthand the importance of leading a life of service, but more importantly, taught me about the power of education, how education is the great equalizer in our society. And with education, everyone can have the opportunity to make lives better for them and their family. And that's why we as Democrats love education, because it's the opportunity that comes with it. My dad, who you can see in both pictures too, my dad's an immigrant. He came here to the US with no money, no college degree, but he had a tremendous work ethic. And he taught me the importance of economic opportunity and mobility, living in a society where you can work your way up with hard work and the right with the right amount of work. But his main goal, truly still to this day, is just to provide a better life for his children than he had, and he's certainly done that. I'm so grateful for both of my parents and the values they taught me. But those two experiences, my mom being a teacher, my dad being just a hardworking immigrant, kind of molded me and shaped the way I view the world today. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. I kind of consider it my family's experience, a little bit of an Arizona dream. We grew up very modestly, but I had a wonderful, wonderful childhood. But then, like every Arizona family, the Great Recession happened, and my family was no different than any other family in Arizona. We struggled. My family lost our house. We filed bankruptcy. And it was really confusing to me at the time. My parents worked hard. They played by the rules. My mom was a teacher. We invested in education, and still the system didn't treat us right? We lost everything. And so that experience really molded the way I view the broken system we have, not only in Arizona, but we got hit harder here in Arizona, but really in the entire US. And that kind of goes along to why I'm wanting to run. In Arizona, since the Great Recession, we've continued to not prioritize all the factors that led to our economic opportunity, all the things we as Democrats strive for. We've not invested in public education. I mean, we've divested every year. We've not investing in affordable housing. We've not invested in access to healthcare, and we've not invested in fighting back against climate change. And to me, those four issues are the building blocks of what it takes to thrive in Arizona, right? Education, healthcare, affordable housing, and protecting the climate, so we can continue to live in this wonderful state for many, many, many more years with water and reasonable climate. And we don't do any of that here at the legislature. We ignore a lot of those problems. And that's exactly why I want to be here and continue to fight, because those issues are what matters to me. And so again, I'll say the reason I'm running for Senate is because I'm promoting the values my parents taught me, that the idea that Arizona, we should thrive, we should strive to make sure our children's generation is better than our generation. We should invest. We should be promoting these economic building blocks. And my party, our party is very good on these issues, but we need fighters here to push back and promote these ideas. So why now? I get that question a lot. And so really the day I decided to get off the background of politics, because I've been involved in the party for, maybe 12 years now. I was the former treasurer of Pima County Democratic Party. I was a PC board member at DGT, president of the Young Dems. But why run and why take the next step? And that was one of my active duty tours. I was on active duty orders for about 6 months, from I think September 2020 all the way till April 2021. And one of those days we were on orders was January 6, 2021. I was in uniform. I was actually at Fort Huachuca. And I watched in horror with my fellow officers and also soldiers when our entire country was under attack from an insurrection at the Capitol. And it just clicked at that moment that the stakes are getting higher than they've ever been. We need people, all of us, to push back because if we don't win, if Democrats aren't able to successfully win elections and win hearts and minds, that's what happens. The other side gets power, and then they create chaos. And so I decided, seeing that it was time for me to do something. It was time for me to run, and it was time for me to push back. I joined the military because I love this country dearly, and I want to protect this country. And I feel a similar feeling of duty right now, in that the other party is out of their minds, respectfully. And we need to do everything we can to win elections and to move not only Arizona, but also the entire country. And so that's the why now, is after seeing that, after experiencing that in uniform, after being lost. I mean, the military, we had no idea what was going on. I wanted to do something, and I wanted to step up and try to help and try to make a difference. And now I'm here. I'm in the Arizona House, and I want to keep trying to make a difference in the Arizona Senate. I have a couple pictures as well. So a little bit about my fighting experience, and anyone that's come and visited at the legislature has seen I am not one to pull punches on the floor with Republican silly ideas. But the picture to the left is a younger version of myself when I fought the governor on a ballot initiative, Proposition 123. It was a education funding initiative. Good people on both sides supported it and didn't support it. I, being a finance background, didn't like that ballot initiative, and I fought him with $15,000 to his $5 million, and we came up a couple $1,000s short. And so I highlight that because that's just the type of person I am. And if I don't like something, if I think something's odd, I push back. And I think we need more of that here at the Capitol. We need more Democrats that are willing to push back and debate and really promote our values. Because I think the more our values get out there, the more we win. It's about getting to the people. The middle picture is obviously me in uniform. That picture was taken years ago. I didn't have any pictures on my most recent tour, much less on January 6th, but thought it important. And then the picture to the right is just me talking on the floor, which I do from time to time to push back against the direction our legislature is taking us. And so that kind of brings me to the legislative session, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about. What are my values? I have introduced bills here. My favorite bill, and it's hard to pick a favorite because they're all so wonderful, but I'm a big proponent of the universal pre-K system. I dropped a bill to have a public pre-K system in the state of Arizona for all 3 and 4 year olds. I'm a big believer that pre-K makes a huge benefit in all children's lives. And right now we have a system where only wealthy children are able to afford pre-K. And that creates inequalities and that just ripple for years and years and years. And I look at it as an investment. I think investing in pre-K costs us less in prison costs, has a more educated population. I think it's a no-brainer. And I want to push that here in Arizona until we have more of an equitable pre-K system. So that is my number one passion bill, if I have one, is a pre-K system here in Arizona for all children. Other bills that I've run here, funding education. I am a finance nerd. I have an MBA from the University of Arizona, which obviously I run a business, and I love working with our policy staffers to find ways that we can fund education. And for me, the best way is a way that a mentor of mine, he actually gave me his bill, Senator Steve Farley. He ran a bill every single year to sunset all tax loopholes 5 to 10 years. So every 5 to 10 years, all these sales and income tax loopholes have to be revoted on. It doesn't necessarily get rid of any tax loopholes, but it just makes them be more present in the public light, right? And that was Senator Farley's big initiative. And that's something that I took from him, worked with him, modified it a little bit, and keep running, because I think it's really important. We have so much money wasted here in tax loopholes that we could, I mean, it's staggering to look at, but it's about 5 times our actual general fund budget is how much we give away in loopholes. And if we want to talk about investing that money in wonderful causes, K-12 education, pre-K, even universities, that's where we get the money from here at the legislature. Obviously, it takes a 3/4 vote for us to raise taxes. So the best, for me, way to increase the pot of money and fund more money to education is going after those tax loopholes, which I absolutely have. I've gotten a lot of flack and pushback for it, but it seems like a no-brainer to me, and we're getting momentum on that. There's a lot of Republicans that are buying onto that idea too, for different reasons, but still buying in. And I'm hoping that one of these years we're able to pass something where tax loopholes have to be revisited every 5 to 10 years. Another passion of mine is affordable housing. I've run 3 different bills this year to address affordable housing, including eviction reform, because eviction and affordable housing are intertwined in my eye. But fundamentally, we're in a crisis here in Southern Arizona, and really Arizona in general. And that's our houses are too expensive. Rent is too expensive. And we need to do something as a government. That's what the government does, is when problems can't be solved by the private sector, we come in and we help. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's time for us to come in and help. And so I've run bills to incentivize more development of affordable housing. I've run bills to increase the state land trust, which are the state land trust fund of affordable housing, in order to put more money into affordable housing. And so I think it's an important issue, and unfortunately, it's an issue that gets worse. A year from now, we're going to be in a worse affordable housing situation than we are today. 5 years from now, it's going to be way worse than we were today. We have a broken supply and demand dynamic where we're not building enough, and too many people are moving here, and that's going to cause prices to skyrocket. And we, as the government, need to do something about that in order to protect people. And then the last kind of bills I've run are climate change related bills. And as a finance person, I absolutely love the potential of clean energy and what that can do for our state. So I'm most excited about something called securitization. I've run multiple bills on it. It's where you put a bunch of debt on coal and natural gas plants in order to retire them sooner. I think it's a brilliant idea. We should have done it 10 years ago, but we'll do it now. And that allows us to put more money into clean energy initiatives, solar or other clean sources. I've also introduced 2 bills that make it easier to finance solar, on residential solar on households or commercial solar, and then also a bill to make it easier to connect solar and kind of have some of our big existing utilities transition to solar quicker. I mean, as an Arizonan, I've been here my entire life. It's such an economic opportunity for us to be the solar capital of the world, much less the solar capital of Arizona or of the United States. And it drives me nuts that we're not promoting that. And so I'm here to hopefully fix that and continue to push for a cleaner Arizona and a more solar Arizona. So now that was offense. Those are my bills. They're written. I've run them. Some of them have been heard in committee. Now, the other thing that I truly do enjoy doing, and that's killing bad bills. We play defense here a lot at the legislature. We are 29 of 60 here in the House, which is the body I serve in. And so we have to kill some really bad bills that are going to be harmful for Arizonans. And we do that by picking off one Republican here or one Republican there. It's all behind the scenes. It's very quiet. You never hear us talk about it publicly, but it's something that we all do. And it's something that I love. And so a couple bills that we were able to kill this year with the work of 1 or 2 specific Republicans. One was an anti-ESG bill. And for anyone that's not familiar with ESG, I think it stands for environmental, social, and governance. So it's a style of investing where you put your money where your values are. It's very popular. And what this bill would have done is it would have banned all state money from being lumped in with any index that has an ESG score. I mean, it's just really silly, really harmful for any sort of progress in these issues. And we were able to to kill it with the help of 2 specific Republicans. Another bill, again, just absolutely silly, was an abortion divestment bill where any company that promoted abortion would have been banned from being owned by the state land trust. That's about 75% of the S&P 500. And so this idea that Arizona doesn't invest in 75% of the S&P 500 is wild to me. And we were able to convey that and express how silly and stupid that idea is and kill it. One of my favorite bills that we were able to, not least favorite bills, but favorite bills that we were able to kill, was a bill that messed with teacher pensions. And again, the Republicans just do anything they can to try to promote their values and hurt teachers. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't understand it. It doesn't help anyone, but they wanted to prevent what areas teachers' pensions could and couldn't invest in, which would just reduce the return and increase the volatility. And as a finance person, it was just absolutely stupid. And so we were able to kill that. And then the last 2 ones were fairly high profile. There was a lot of anti-COVID bills this year, COVID vaccine bills that would punish employers for requiring the COVID vaccine, bills that would mandate employers from not promoting the COVID vaccine, just anti-public health, bad bills. And we were able to kill a lot of them. And of course, the famous audit of Pima County, there were multiple bills that were calling for that. And again, working with 1 or 2 Republicans on the other side, we were able to kill that. And so I like talking about both sides of the legislature, the offense, which is what's fun. It's my values. It's where I want to see the state go. But the defense is just as important, especially when you're in the minority where there's 60 members and 29 Democrats. The defense has to be a big priority to anyone that's coming here. And it's how we protect our state is by playing defense sometimes. And that, let's see, how much time did I left a good amount of time for questions. Well, that is my just, I guess, overall why now, who I am. I have plenty of contact information. I am very active on social media. I like to talk about my values, my bills, and then also shine light on what happens here at the legislature as much as possible. And then I have a Twitter, a LinkedIn, a Facebook, and then a website. So I should be pretty easy to find if anyone is wanting to follow up or talk about any issues. And then again, I am my district's LD10. And so I'm sure I have lots of constituents on this. I actually see a couple just knowing people. So yeah, I guess at that point, I'll turn it over to you, Larry, for questions.
Lillian Fox, go right ahead and ask your question.
Okay. It always bothers me when people say they're in favor of public pre-K because we only fund kindergartens at half day. The state doesn't even fully fund kindergarten. And so I really think we should do that first, but I never hear anybody say anything about fully funding kindergarten.
That's a great point, and I should change some of my slides there. So my bill actually did fund full K. So in this state, in order to have a fully funded kindergarten system, it costs us about $210 million off the top of my head. And then the pre-K system would be an additional $700 million. So my bill called for an additional about $1 billion in investment, because there's no sense. You're absolutely right. There's no sense in funding a pre-K system when we're just going to have half-day kindergarten. Those two, for me, it needs to be kindergarten first and then pre-K. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I can assure you my bill and all the Democrats that signed on to my bill are in agreement that kindergarten is absolutely a part of that equation.
Barbara Warren has her hand up. Go ahead, Barbara.
I'm very happy to hear you have a strong interest in addressing climate change mitigation. I'd like to ask you a question about climate adaptation. We heard people talking at the beginning of the meeting today about the fact that we're going to be facing 100-degree weather pretty soon. And currently there is no federal or state occupational safety and health standard to ensure the safety and health of workers who are exposed to dangerous heat conditions in the workplace. There are states like California, Minnesota, Washington, and the U.S. military that have some really good standards that they have had for a while, and they are protecting workers. What I'd like to know is if you would be willing to introduce a bill like Congressman Grijalva's bill, which was the Ascension Valadez heat, illness, and fatality prevention standard into the Senate to protect workers in our state and our communities. The military does a great job at this, but the rest of us don't. And there are an awful lot of people who are exposed to well over 100-degree weather in their workplace every day. And this is life-threatening.
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that, actually, 'cause it's something I've actually talked with labor. So I'm a big supporter of labor and try to work with them very, very closely, all the different unions. And so you mentioned why my interest in this topic is that the military, as an Army officer, we have really, really strict requirements for training. I mean, there's a chart that as an officer we use, and it's this temperature, this is how much work, and this is how much recovery there is. And above 105, a lot of times that work to recovery ratio is 1/3, 2/3, depending on the other conditions. And so my mindset is, if it's good enough for the United States military, which is something that we all love and support, why isn't it good enough for Arizona? So I fully support that. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's going to become a bigger issue as we continue to ignore climate change as a state, and hopefully we will turn that soon. And I actually have had conversations with labor on what that would look like, who would affect, and how we would pass something. So yes, you have my commitment that I will introduce something soon on that.
All right, let's turn to my friend in LD18, Gail Camaras. Go right ahead, Gail.
Hi, Larry. Yes, my question to Morgan is, now that he's been in the House and established relationships, hopefully on both sides of the aisle, why the switch to the Senate?
Yes. So first of all, I appreciate the question. It's such a good insight that I think we need to talk more about. And that's the importance of relationships here. And again, that defense part of the presentation when I was talking, that's how we play defense, is with the relationships we have. And I've made some great relationships here in the House, and there's Republicans I can lean on for specific issues to kill bills. And that's something that the caucus calls on me to do from time to time. If it's a specific bill, they ask me to have a conversation. The legislature is a very small body, both the Senate and the House. We work very closely with the other chamber. And so while I've been creating wonderful relationships with members of my party, and maybe less wonderful, but still important relationships with members of the other party, I still have been doing the same thing in the Senate. There's plenty of Democrat and Republican senators that I've gotten to know really, really well, and plan to continue to leverage those relationships in order to maybe pass good bills and certainly stop bad bills.
Thank you. Let's turn to Andrea Kennedy. Go right ahead, Andrea.
Thank you, Larry, and good to see you again, Morgan.
It's so good to see you. It's been a very long time.
Yeah, the good old days at the Dragon View restaurant.
Yes.
My observation in regards to affordable housing, the real cause is greed. You have the infamous Kevin Easterly, who bought the property, the apartments with the seniors in it, raised the rent 50%. Now they got to move. And this is what he's doing. He's moving the tenants out. Then he's going to fix up the place a little, refinance, take the equity, and then put it for sale, and then take the profit, and then do it all over again. My question is, with such an incentive to make so much money, how do you stop people from doing this? I mean, it's great. You and other guys like you are making affordable housing. I don't think that's enough. How do you go up against this, A? And B, what did you do with the Fort Huachuca Intelligence Training School? Or can you not tell us? Because you have to kill us if you told us. And
I will
that's my
do.
2 questions.
I'll do your second question second. First
Okay.
question first. I love talking about housing because it's my world. I built a business to house our most vulnerable. That's what I do. It's Section 8 and HUD Bash, which is the veterans version of Section 8. And so, yes, you're right. The incentives are wrong in housing at the moment. There's too many actors, and most of them are not local. Most of them come from California, Phoenix, Texas, Nevada. There's too many actors that are coming into our community and buying up large and small complexes, and then just removing the tenants and jacking up rent. And so I do believe that when a market is not working properly, which it's no question this housing market is not working properly, it's time for government to come in and protect and incentivize. So there's two kind of components to what I'd want to see in housing. One is increasing the amount of housing. We need to increase the amount of affordable housing. And in order to do that, we need to incentivize more affordable housing builders like myself to be able to build more, because there's still plenty of people that don't have a place to live. And we need to increase the amount of money that tenants that are subsidized can afford through whether Section 8 or other programs done by nonprofits. So that's kind of the first component. The second component is we need to protect tenants. And that's why I talked briefly about eviction reform and also other ways to protect tenants. So I ran a bill on eviction reform, which would completely change the way we think about and do eviction in this state. It would lengthen the process. It would have more check marks in that process, and it would hopefully give more tenants leverage in this process, because at the end of the day, we don't want eviction, right? We want landlords and tenants to solve those problems and not have anyone displaced. And sometimes you can do that by giving more leverage to tenants. So yes, I'm a huge proponent of the state stepping in and doing something. Some of that's going to take money, which I'm a big proponent, and some of that's going to mean changing laws, changing eviction laws, changing rent raising laws, which we don't have right now, and changing the way we build. So I think the second question on intelligence, I absolutely love my job as an intelligence officer, but there's not much we talk about publicly. But it is an honor. And actually, anyone who knows me knows I normally have a little more scruff. That's because I was training this weekend at Fort Huachuca, so I had to be clean shaven and look a lot younger than I am. But I love the ability to put on the uniform and serve. I'm just a reserve officer now, so I one weekend a month. But it is just one of my favorite things to do, and I absolutely love the opportunity to be able to still do it even though I'm getting a little older. So.
Right. Thanks very much, Morgan. Let's turn now to Mike Bryan. Go ahead, Mike.
Morgan, you mentioned using some sort of financial maneuvering to force fossil fuel plants to close earlier. Can you explain that more for us mere financial mortals to understand how that works?
So again, I'm a finance nerd and proud of it. I have an MBA, my business is in finance, and I love taking that hat and helping my party, the Democrats, here in the House, understand bills and understand ideas that can help what we want to do with our values. And so the one area that I absolutely love talking about is the potential to use finance for fighting climate change. And so what this specific bill does is it would allow TEP, APS, and SRP, the public utilities, to place a bunch of debt on their coal and natural gas plants. And the reason we would want to do that is in this state, and again, this is not a good thing. And if I were the king of Arizona, I would change this. But in this state, our public utilities are guaranteed a 10% annual rate of return on all their assets, right? So when we talk about how do we move to solar, how do we retire coal and natural gas plants, we're not only talking about how do we build more clean, but how do we take these investments that these big public utilities have made, and they're poor investments in my opinion, but they're still investments and they still are guaranteed a rate of return. How do we lessen their rate of return in order to shift them off that? And the answer to that is you can place a lot of debt on those assets, give that money back to the utilities and force them to build coal, or force them to build solar and renewable energies. And so it's called the stranded asset problem, if anyone's curious. But unfortunately, in our current system, those utilities are guaranteed a certain rate of return for all the stupid natural gas and coal plants that they built. And by putting debt on those assets, you can reduce the amount of money that they're owed, which quickens up how long they have to run those. So while a coal plant would be running for another 15 years, with securitization, that could only run for another 2 or 3 years. That's kind of the idea. And there's lots of proponents here at the Capitol. It's bipartisan. We got shut down this year, but I'll be back with that. And I think it's a wonderful tool, and it's just one tool of many in order to go greener in Arizona.
Could you do the same sort of maneuver with say depreciation rates for vehicle fleets?
Yes, exactly. And that now you're thinking, now you're living in my world. Yeah. That's sometimes what I try to focus on is climate change is a huge problem, but there's tools, especially in financial markets, that we can use to fight that. And a lot of, there's a lot of debt out there for pro climate projects. And so, yeah, using debt to retire old fleets, using debt to retire coal and natural gas projects, that's the kind of ideas we need here. Because unfortunately, until we have the governor, the Senate, and the House, we're really gonna, kind of be playing defense on climate related issues. And that's where I think using finance can help us.
Right. Thanks very much, Morgan. Let's turn to Shirley Muni. Go right ahead, Shirley.
What do we do about this huge budget surplus that we have? Who's got the most dibs on it? What are the chances of getting something worthwhile done rather than just more vouchers for public schools and so on?
You hit on it, and it sounds like you read things that so what's going on here very well. So right now we have a massive budget surplus, ongoing about 1.5 billion, and then one time closer to 4 billion. There's problems in the Republican Party. There's one specific member of the Senate who is holding out. He will not commit his vote to a budget until there's at least a $900 million investment in public education, which is wonderful because I'm rooting for him. But, and you said this at the end, Paul Boyer, yeah, someone just put it in the chat. Mr. Boyer also wants a universal voucher program, which is not something I support. I'm not pro voucher in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think we need to pare down our voucher laws. So that's kind of the conundrum we're in right now is yes to money, yes to investment. 900 million is great. Honestly, I think we should be investing more with this budget surplus, but no to vouchers, no to more private companies getting to take our public dollars and send them who knows where. And so we as Democrats are actually having strategy meetings now to figure out what leverage do we have and what can we promote to get in this budget. For me, the answer is education. When someone asks me, like, what is my number one priority for new spending here? Like if a Republican member approached me and said, what do you want to see? The answer is education. It's K-12. It's keeping teachers. It's retaining teachers like my mom. It's investing in our future for the exact reasons that my parents chose Arizona to make their home. So it's an interesting standoff right now. And I think a lot will happen this week and next week. So we'll kind of have a better idea of what the picture looks like.
Thank you.
Thanks again for all your hard work. Let me turn to Joe Danishevsky. Joe D., what have you got for us?
Well, we've got a couple questions in the chat room, Morgan. And the first one is from Susie Anderson. How can you call Republican dumbing down of America's of value?
I don't think I understand the question. They certainly are dumbing down America, and they are choosing to not invest in education. That is a conscious choice they are making, and that will lead to a dumbing down of America. But that certainly is not valuable, in my opinion. And in fact, I fight it daily.
Okay, we've got another question from Susie. Chinese citizens are spending a lot of money investing in and buying up properties in the U.S. How big a problem do you see this?
So I'm not sure about the Chinese citizens. I don't have any data on that. I do know there's quite strict capital controls going from one country to another, but there is a problem with a lot of outside money. And by outside, I mean anything that's not Arizona coming into our beautiful, wonderful state and buying up properties. And that is something that's causing affordable housing. And so we actually passed an ad hoc study committee to look into that being one of the issues. One of the low-hanging fruits in that area for me is this Airbnb like free for all that we have in this state, where anyone can buy buy a house, turn it into Airbnb. The neighbors don't matter, the community doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want. So we are hopefully going to pass a law that looks at the Airbnb problem and maybe pares that down to allow for more reasonable regulation over short-term rentals. But to her point, it is a problem, and we definitely need to do more as a state to protect our citizens.
Okay, last question. Paul Boyer was mentioned, and
Yes.
did his bill to have private companies take over failing schools pass or fail?
So unfortunately, it wasn't Paul Boyer's bill. It was another Republican, Miss Udall's bill. That bill is stalled right now, and it's stalled because a couple members of the House were able to have conversations with two specific Republicans and get them off the bill. So nothing is dead until sine die. But we as Democrats, I'm one of those members. Another wonderful member we have is Miss Pollock out of Chandler. We've had two conversations multiple times with two Republicans where we know that they are off that bill at the moment.
And for now, that's all our questions.
All right, let's turn to everybody's best friend, Jim Hanley. Go ahead, Jim.
So nice to have that nickname. Would you be willing to talk with us about how we can see that a state bank can help to grow community banks and to energize the Arizona economy?
I am one step ahead of you. So I don't know if you remember this. Well, so I've known Jim for a very, very long time. And so we met about 6 years ago and talked about public banking with Rep. Powers Hanley. I'm a huge supporter of a public bank, and I asked Rep. Powers Hanley for her permission to, hopefully, if I make it back here, to keep running that bill that she runs. A public bank is another financial tool to allow our values to be more represented in finance. And I absolutely love it. Rep. Powers Hanley and you yourself have introduced me to that national organization, which I'm on the email list and I follow very closely. So yes, I plan on running that bill that your wife does, going forward, and hopefully one day we get there.
Excellent. Let's turn to Lillian Fox. Go ahead, Lillian.
I think we need a new bill that allows tax credit money if you just donate money to your local school library. Because, for example, TUSD hasn't funded school libraries in years. They laid off all their elementary, middle school, and K-8 librarians in 2014. And we need money to put books in those libraries because that's how kids learn to read.
It's an interesting point. I'm always a little, just full disclosure, a little skeptical of tax credits, because what tax credits are is they are taking money that people should be paying in taxes to our government and diverting them. I think it's a wonderful idea to divert tax credits for public schools, but that's why we pay taxes, is in order to fund our wonderful priorities that we have as a government, and one of those being public education. So again, I'm a little skeptical of tax credits in general, but I'm happy to look into that, especially if there's like a very specific cause like a library. But yeah, that just full disclosure.
No, I understand. I agree. I have kind of another question, if it's okay. You mentioned doing something about raising rent laws or
Yes.
trying to limit that. Do you have any specific things in mind, or is that something you're still working on?
No, there's a bill. It didn't get heard, shocker, but a bill exists. A wonderful Representative Solario ran, and it's a very similar bill to what they do in California, which is in California, I believe the number is no rents can go up by more than 7% plus inflation. And as a real estate guy and also a finance guy, that's a lot of money, right? I mean, that's a 10%, because inflation is typically about 3%. A 10% rate increase is a lot. So, that's to me even a lot, but that's what the bill says. And in my opinion, there needs to be something to protect people. What we're seeing in this market is just not appropriate. It's not acceptable. And people who have lived in their homes for 20 years can be out just like that. And so, that's the job of government, is to protect. So I was a supporter of Rep. Solario's bill. I'm sure we'll tweak it in the summer and try to give it more legs and eventually see if we can get that across the finish line.
Great. Thank you.
All right, we have time for one more question because I know you have to get to a meeting at about 1 o'clock. Let's turn to Lucy Messing. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Larry. Hey, Morgan.
Hello, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you. Just a quick question about what might be happening with the budget. What are you hearing as far as what kind of budget things might be happening that are going to happen quickly that we need to really watch? And then what's your prediction for how long this session is going to last? Because it makes me very nervous.
So I'll answer the last one first. I think we're going to be here a while. There's too much money, and there's a lot of money, and then a lot of different ideas on what to do with that money. And there's just no consensus. So I do believe we're here for a couple more months, just trying to get to a budget. To your point, it's very possible that the Republicans get frustrated with their own caucus, because they do have quite a rowdy caucus, and look to our caucus to provide votes for a budget. My lane here is defer to leadership and kill bills. So I am one of the members of the caucus. I will stand strong with other Democrats to get our priorities. I will not break. I will not be an individual that votes on the budget. But in my highest and best use right now, which is an economic term, is killing bills. And so to your point, there's a lot of really bad bills that are floating around, and I'm staying on every one of those, trying to continue to have those discussions with Republicans and say, hey, you're still off this. If anything changes, call me, text me. As far as horse trading, I think the biggest issue, there's takeover, public education takeover bills. There's changing the funding formula, like a lot of silly stuff. To me, the biggest one that I think is going to get horse traded is vouchers. I really don't think this school takeover bill is going to have enough to get across the finish line. And I really don't think this changing funding is going to have enough to get off the finish line. But I do think the voucher threat is very, very real. And we will see some sort of expansion of vouchers. And the best way I know how to kill a bill is by friends, right? And so I can promise you AEA and all the other education groups will be my first phone call the second I hear whatever's happening, because we need resources, we need friends. That's how we win together.
Morgan, we've run out of time and you've got a meeting. Could you tell everybody here how we can reach you, how we can find out more about you, and what we can do to support you?
Yes, well, thank you. And I do have rules, I think, in 5 minutes. So I will be running to go vote on whether bills are constitutional. But my website, morganabraham.com. I'm on all the social media sites, and the best support I can ask is just reaching out and doing a shift. We're a grassroots campaign. We're going to be knocking on a lot of doors, making a lot of phone calls, and if that's something that interests you, I mean the world to me. So I so appreciate all your time, and it was a wonderful conversation, and it was so great seeing so many friends on this call that I haven't seen in a very long time.
All right, Morgan, thank you so much for your time and all the work you're doing in the legislature. And with that, I'm going to have to draw the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for coming today, and best of luck, Morgan. Go get 'em.